you can all as well ask questions that are beyond the presentations. I know that we didn't get the chance to ask questions after Dave's presentation, so you might be excited to perhaps cast some of your thoughts there. So it's up to you. So now, this for the next, I would say, 30 minutes at least, or 35 minutes, this is led by you. This session is led by you. So there you go. Yes, please, just present yourself. And
so basically, I mean, today in the market also, there are many tools that are available for project management. So they basically facilitate all the work that basically the project managers do in a more systematic manner. So do you think that it is better to use it as a secondary and the main project manager do the main task and then just use it as a verification? The softwares and the tools can be used just as a secondary thing for the verification of our whatever we have done, or whether that should be the primary thing and the project manager should just supervise all those things.
so are we talking that the project manager should still use the traditional methods and use other methods for verification? Is this what you're saying?
Yeah, for example, like several tools are available today to manage projects, right? Which are softwares basically. Or we can say even the business processing tools like SAP and all those things are also coming out in the market. So is the importance of the project manager will diminish because of that anyone can do now the project management thing, or whether do you think that still the brains are required beyond software?
So I hope so, otherwise I'm out of a job, mate.
So who would like to address this? It's a general question. There you go. Amos, you want to?
Yeah, well, I think we had a really interesting talk this morning again on artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, the tools and techniques are there to aid the project manager. Project management is not just about delivering on cost. We have something to monitor cost. It's not delivering on time, you have something to monitor time. It requires human input. And most of project management is strategic thinking in order to do that. So to answer your question, the tools are there as aids. Right? Good project managers are developed, have a number of capabilities, have a number of skills, and they're out there. So yeah, absolutely.
Right. Anyone would like to add something?
There is a difference in thinking between UK and US. And if you look at the development of the PMI BIMPOL, okay, and the development of the APM body of knowledge in UK versus the PMI BIMPOL in US, you will find there are similarities, yes, tools and techniques as my colleagues are saying that support the whole management process. But the difference in thinking and the philosophy behind the last two versions of the APM body of knowledge is that managing project and failure of project or success of project mostly will be relying on front-end management rather than the techniques which we use at the different stages later on. And that's why there is big arguments between those developing the APM body of knowledge and the PIMPOP that soft issues need to be included. And very recently, this has been going long since the 90s, actually. And very recently, the last version of the PMI PIMPOP, they added stakeholder management. And that's also related to this argument which has been going on for a long time. But the thinking behind the last version of the APM is that they put more focus on the soft issues, and you need to resolve these in the very first two big stages, the concept stage and the definition stage of the project, and then failure and success will be easier managed throughout the other stages. So that's a difference in thinking, if you like.
Right. Thank you very much. Yes, Dave.
It's what it's a privilege to be part of this, because this is a major part of our work at the moment. So this is, and the summary was brilliant, but it's really appreciated from the industry. I think there's a couple of things. I think the philosophical difference between the US and the UK is actually more fundamental than the volume theory. And you can actually trace it back really to the Middle Ages. It's a difference between an emphasis on individuals and an emphasis on the collective. It's known as social activism against communitarianism. But what you tend to see is Northern Europe, England, North America tends to think of all society is an aggregation of individual self-interest. So if you get the individuals right, the system will sort itself. Whereas Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Southern Europe, the Celtic Kingdom of Britain, tends to see individuals as being defined by the communities they're part of. So they tend to focus on social interaction rather than individual capability.
Yeah.
And the argument I've been making in the Middle East for ages is they're copying US methods, which are culturally completely inappropriate to the Middle East.
Yes.
Will work in the US because the US has an atomistic, future-focused engineering culture, whereas most other parts of the world have much more of a social culture. Yeah? So I think that's one issue. So I buy the concept you need to get the soft issues right up front. Yeah? But I think the other thing we need, and this is what we're working on, it's interesting, Prince 2 Agile now has Connect in it. If you look at the last release of Prince 2 for Agile, it's got the Connect framework in it. It doesn't really work through the implications, but that they're starting to realise complexity is part of it. Part of that is I think we need a new body of tools. So if you go back to the original Anarcha paper on Scrum, for example, you'll find the Scrum components say that Scrum was based in complexity theory, then they cite systems thinking. And that's not complexity, because systems thinking is causal. And virtually all project management methods assume you've got linear causality.
Yes.
And it's a failure to understand it or appreciate it or management is the issue. Once you realise in a complex system you haven't got causality,
Yes.
you've got dispositionality. A whole body of problems can go away. So that's why, for example, if we look at Kanban, the underlying principle of Kanban is management of work in progress.
Yeah.
Now, from a complex system, management of work in progress is a series of potential stable states, not a series of defined units, which is why you can't represent it as a Kanban, but you can represent it as a probability landscape. You see where I'm going with this? You start to say there's a difference between the tools, right? You also, in a dispositional system, you can anticipate phase shifts, and you can get human beings to pay attention to those, but you can't predict the future. So that means actually anticipatory alerts are more critical for project management than management of goals.
Yes.
So one of the things we're looking at to develop over the next 2 years is project team workbooks, which will give us the sort of data we have in counter-terrorism, the volume of data, to identify weak signals or patterns, which is where we start to use AI to do pattern recognition, but not determination. To actually trigger alerts that a project or an element of a project may be going wrong before the project manager is even aware that the possibility may exist. Because the earlier you can trigger an alert and the earlier you can pay attention to things that people are ignoring, and the more you can remove that from human politics, the more likely you are to steer a project on track. That's one thing we're looking at. I think the other thing we're also looking at is to remove the role of the project manager and replace it with a crew. Because actually, if you look at the way the crews work, they provide huge flexibility and cognitive capacity beyond some level of the individuals. And I think this comes back to the history, which I think is really good at the end. You don't get Superman or Superwoman. It's neat twist to make a Superwoman, by the way. You can't get that in a single human being, and it's not a competence, but you can get it in a crew. And the point about a crew is there's always a pilot, but who is the pilot can change. The other really interesting thing about a crew is in military terms. So for example, if I take a British fighter, a bomber crew, a sergeant can be the pilot. So while the plane is flying, the sergeant is in charge, even if a major is their navigator. But when the plane lands, the major is in charge and the sergeant is inferior. So crews have a capacity to delegate authority based on competence without loss of status for the individual. So one of the things we're now looking at is to create a 3-year collaborative program to develop that. But I do think there is a phase shift difference. It's a cliff. It's a phase shift. It's whatever between complexity and order.
Yeah.
And tools which work in order will not work except by approximation in complexity. And that's where so many things go wrong. We're also looking to create a risk index by which you can measure the time a programming project spends in the complex space. Because the longer the program spends in the complex space, the higher level of uncertainty, the higher risk, and the more and specialist resources you need. The sooner you move it into the order domains, then actually the lower risk, the less specialist resources, etc., etc. So I think that this is a really exciting area to be in at the moment. But my gut feel is the Peabody guys are not going to get it because they're locked into a rigid model of codification and structure, and their adaptive capacity is limited.
It's very interesting that you've mentioned this, Dave, because actually the theme of our debate session that I think we should move to it now, because, but again, as I will leave the freedom of asking questions to the floor, that we were looking at where academia stands, where practice stands, and 15 years ago, I remember, perhaps you heard of something called ARCOM, Association of Researchers. I remember that we were asking the same question, and someone from ARCOM, a very respected colleague from Reading, said, there's nothing wrong that we would be ahead, 15 years ahead from the industry. But I said, yeah, but if we are on the same line. But it is really interesting if we are on completely different pages. And the thing is, what I feel today that there is a widening gap between what's happening in academia and what's happening in practice. And practitioners perhaps are using this to endorse the claim that, you see, they are not engaged and we are the one facing the real world, making money, making successful projects, keeping our jobs and keeping the jobs for our teams and subordinates. Academics are people who are in their own world, thinking their own way, and unless they guide us through how to implement this, or perhaps how to, where is the missing link between these interesting thoughts and outcome of research and the implementation. The interesting thing in what you've presented today, that you were reflecting on practical applications. So things that you have seen happening.
We're doing theory-informed practice. I mean, we're arguing there's a new philosophy of social science in that you can't adopt an empirical approach in software science.
Yeah.
Because you can only adopt an empirical approach during periods of stability. During periods of instability, the contextual shift is such that an empirical approach leads to bad judgment. And that's where you actually do what's practice or theory-informed practice. You say, what do we know about systems, what do we know about cognition? From a natural science perspective, that provides a constraint. But I think there's a more general problem. I think I've seen practitioners in the Agile community say, to hell with the theory, if it works with good people, it's okay. And that's a really dangerous thing. If you don't understand why something works, you should never repeat a what. Yeah, it's kind of like, but the trouble is academics have got into studying cases. So they're starting to lag practice because they wait for cases to emerge in industry and then they retrospectively write it up and they believe what people tell them.
Right.
And I've been a bit wicked now, but I know if I went and did this with ethnography and Ericsson, there would be no correspondence whatsoever between the experience of the people and what we were told this morning. Yeah, because actually the people responsible for the functions in companies are hearing what they expect to hear. The reality, most people in corporates have learned to gain that, and academics aren't privileged in that. But I think the related problem in both fields is we've lost generalists. There are no generalists left in the UK under the age of 50. Because we've lost the sort of multidisciplinary education, the multidisciplinary curiosity, and both in industry and academic alike, we're working in increasingly narrow silos. And the people with the ability to do the joined-up thinking are fewer and fewer.
Interesting. So what would you suggest? That's very perhaps interesting point of view, and I think it is very mind-provoking for those of you guys who are in practice with your own thoughts, with your own views and positions. So I'm expecting to hear something from you, please. Yes.
I think one thing I observed is that when you're working in a company, you're a bit in the middle of the action, and you are challenged with problems that you need to solve today, latest tomorrow, while academia is in a certain way slow. So academia is coming, or is at least perceived by the industry as slow, because it's coming with the answers to my question 2 years later. So for me, it's partly a speed problem. I feel that partly we need to experiment our way forward, because we have no other choice. We have to decide and act today, but then still have the openness to work with academia while proper studies are done to understand why certain things work.
So my question to all of you, if you may allow me to ask this question. Well, today we have seen a very interesting presentation with interesting models and theory explained very well. So the claim that we need to wait perhaps does not really exist, or is it a matter of we don't have time to learn this?
Yeah, I think that there is I was going to say, I fundamentally disagree with the point. The last thing you want is academics waiting for academics to study what other people have done and replicate it. What you need is academics in up front from multiple disciplines, giving information or advice as to what we should do.
Exactly.
And I think we need to reverse the balance on that.
I've got maybe a different view here, because I think it's two-way approach. Because you can develop theory based on practice, which that means the industry will lead, and we use the case studies from the industry, and then we develop the theory. Or we can do it the other way around. These are two different approaches for research methodologies and research philosophies, which are very valid in academia and research, as well as the collaboration between academia and research. So it's two-way type of system approach.
Right. Amos.
I think.
And then you have to apply that to a real-world problem, so examination by thesis. But you have to keep a narrative-based workbook, during that process. And you remember from the Agile community I'm no longer a part of, because I think I'm too disruptive for it, all right? That was one of the ideas we came up with, all right, which we're now putting into practice. You've got to have an apprentice model of learning, which means you've got to learn from experience, but you've also got to have the theoretical knowledge to apply that practice and to modify the practice.
I might add something here also. I think that we expect also from industry to get involved, to let us know what's the problem in the industry. What we have seen in my presentation here, it was a question from industry. We have a problem in prototyping. How we can improve this? How we can shorten the lead time in supply chain? How I don't know before. So I go to the organization, ask them. I live within the organization, so I can listen to all the key staffs inside the organization. So I know the problem. So we need from the industry to also give us feedback to know what is there, how we can help. We have students, master student, PhD student, can help even for free. So I mean, it's for the good of the organization as well, just to come and look our doors. So we have a problem. Can you help us? So we are welcome all of these issues as well.
It's very interesting that you mentioned the employability part, because I think this is critical for us running programs and master's degrees and even undergraduate degrees. So we are still, and I think this is across the board, we're still delivering the traditional project management and the strategic project management. I'm not aware that many, I would say, universities are actually teaching courses on Lean or Agile, perhaps Lean as a philosophy in operations or even in, but that is quite recent, by the way, and it is more of, so if we are not really getting closer, perhaps the university are sending the wrong people to the market. So what is your say on that? Because, for example, you guys, you recruit for your project. What are you looking in your as skills and talents, and how universities are catering for that.
Good question.
But I think this point you are raising, it is part, because it is part of the project management domain, and it is covered in project management courses and programs actually. So I mean, lean thinking or agile, they are covered. But yes, you won't find in a university a master degree which is titled Master MSc in.
So let me rephrase the question. When we give assignments in universities and ask people or our students to manage a project or set up project planning, go engage in project planning to come up with a project plan, including risk management system, cost management system, what do you see out of them? Isn't it the PMI methodology till now in most cases? Yet, so I agree with you, Dr. Taha, that we are claiming to be perhaps addressing, introducing, talking about the topics of lean project management, even lean construction, agile thinking, Kanban, all these interests. I'm sure some of our students are here. Most of, I think all the terms that have been put on the screen, they are aware of it. They've seen it, perhaps sometimes, or heard of it. But my question to the industry, what skills are you looking for, and are we catering for these skills or not?
I think you're now a bit, I see research and I see education. And for me, a bit these are, I don't know whether it is really like this, but for me it's a bit separated tracks of the universities. So your question is now more pointing towards the education.
But these are the two dimensions, or let's say the two wings of academia,
Yeah.
learning and teaching and research. So,
But that's part of the problem. When I was at Aberystwyth University last week, all right, where we were talking about a new approach on behavioural economics. And two of us were basically saying we do not understand why academics regard teaching as some sort of punishment.
Yes.
Because the reality, that's culture. Because the reality is, certainly from my point of view, when I teach, ideas come together in my head. Without the interaction with people who are naive, the field would not develop. So I think part of that is the need to integrate the two. Yeah? I think it also goes back to what you said earlier. I mean, lean is a philosophy. Yeah. Agile is a collection of methods becoming a cult-like ideology. It's now becoming an ideological thrust that people can't escape, which is actually quite dangerous, and academics aren't criticising that. And they should be, because they've got the theoretical knowledge to criticise it. They're just going with the flow, right, in that sense. So I do think there's stuff we need to do here around what's, for example, one we're looking at is executive incubation.
yeah.
So rather than you come with your problem and we come up with a solution, is we understand your problem in a more fragmented way, we understand our capabilities in a more fragmented way, and we recombine them to produce novel solutions. So you move away from this linear requirement stuff.
Exactly. I definitely agree. Just going to your bit about why some academics see teaching as punishment, I can tell you as an academic why some academics see it as a punishment, because teaching does not give them any promotions. But when you excel in research, this is the easy way for undisputed criteria to get a promotion.
It's Goodhart's law in economics. The minute a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a measure.
Exactly.
Now, academics only want to get out short-term, limited-function papers in defined journals.
Exactly.
And not do real research. Einstein wouldn't get tenure these days.
Good. So yes, please.
Yeah,
but I'll wait for your answer. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, but just
yeah, would I hire a project manager straight from the university? I'm not sure. What our company is more looking for are people who really understand how cloud computing works and who are the top notch on the latest software development experiences and so on. This is what most companies, where the mass of people are looking for. Project managers is more a kind of a discipline that is bred from within the company. So you just, a typical project management career, at least in our company, is that you start as a software developer and you understand by really working with the thing how.
So it's a homegrown type of thing.
And then you grow from there.
Interesting.
Start as an engineer.
No, it's actually they are teaching their employees how to manage the project the way they want them to manage the project.
As an engineer.
Not forget about what you learned in universities, but this is what we would like you to do because this is what works for us.
But that's true for software development as well. I mean, same thing was I was in IBM. We didn't want people out of university who'd been trained in coding.
Yes.
We wanted architects and philosophers and anthropologists because we could train them in coding.
Right.
And by the time that, the stuff they were taught on university courses, by the time they came out, it was out of date anyway. Right?
As a graduate program, yes.
But I think the other thing is we need some disruption in this. I mean, the point I made about ethnography would apply to any big company. It wasn't just Ericsson. But having had the direct experience of developing pioneering work with Ericsson, which is now being used by your competitors, because your IT department couldn't take it on board, because their processes had become so rigidified. If something wasn't in the 3 or 5 year plan, they couldn't accommodate to novelty. So actually, from my point of view, it's quite ironic. Ericsson paid for a whole new approach to develop different approaches to mobile phone interaction. We're now using that with 2 of your major competitors, because the Ericsson system couldn't cope novelty which it hadn't planned for. And I found that in IBM as well. IBM, I got hiked back to do complexity 3 years after I'd left, because you weren't allowed to have an original idea which wasn't in the 3 year plan. I mean, that was the great irony. It's the adoption of Stalinist state planning techniques by American capitalists. And I think, and then we've got to be careful here, because the big companies tend to institutionalize past practice rather than create space for novelty, and academics are tending to copy that.
Well,
yes.
Sorry.
I will come back to your point about developing your project managers from programmers, but I will come back to it because I want to make a summary and linking the thinking of agile practitioners against or versus project management. I'll come back to that later.
Right. I mean, the gentleman has been waiting, so please.
Yeah, going back to the question.
Yes, please.
Linking to the university to the industry.
Yes, please.
I'm working in an oil and gas company, and the business unit who's taking care of project and engineering. And it's a quite big organization, and we use some sort of portfolio management. And it's a similar case. We have our own methodologies for project management, but it's more likely like following PMI with a gate approach. We use a gate approach in project management. Then the sets and tools are similar to the PMI ones. And in every meeting I ask, because I'm a technical guy coming from background from IT, I ask in every meeting, do you hear about the Agile methodology? Because we follow traditional project management. I never met anyone in my organization know anything about Agile methodology. It seems that it's very famous in IT or tech companies, but it's not in oil and gas or construction companies. So maybe we need to work in introducing Agile methodology in other industries. One of your slides.
I'd agree and disagree. Right? I think it's fascinating the way that the lean guys, right, went to Japan and tried to copy Japan, and they forgot that Japan had gone to see Denim and had adapted Denim's ideas to Japanese culture. Right? So one of the key things is how you create something. You need to understand at a lower level and adapt within a specific cultural environment. So Agile as a method is, to my mind, I mean, first of all, it became coterminous with Scrum when actually XP would have given it a better structure. I mean, the trouble is the XP people can't talk to ordinary human beings, so they couldn't define methods other people could use, right? But basically, you can't take a method designed for software engineers and apply it to mechanical engineering, because software engineers can control their ecology far better than mechanical engineering. So I think the issue is, how do we take the principles of short cycle width, for
some
example,
processes,
and modify
some hybrid approaches.
But the danger is what's happening is the Agile community are now trying to sell their methods outside the software industry without adapting to a different context, and that's going to produce a series of disasters. And people like Steve Denning are at the heart of this, because they're arguing you can use an Agile method for corporate strategy. Sorry, you can't. The context is so different.
It's the spirit of things. It's the underlying, perhaps.
It's the underlying principles,
yes,
right?
That's
short
what I
cycle,
meant,
self-organizing teams is a great concept.
Yes.
If you know the theory of self-organizing teams, you know you need constraints which force diversity.
Yes.
And Agile people don't get that. They think self-organizing teams is getting together with people you want to work with. It isn't.
Yes.
Yet you first of all have to work out what the constraint structures are.
Yes.
So again, I think this comes back to one of the contributions academics can do is help people scale.
That's exactly
by understanding the theory behind the practices, so that the practices can be modified.
This is exactly what we're trying to do, and I think This is what I meant through the presentation, that we need to look at the culture, the context, but is Agile as looking at the underlying, obviously, because there is no one fits all, as we said. So you can't really copy the exact step-by-step method that's applied in software development and expect that this will be good for an event management, for example. But perhaps the underlying enhanced communication, reiteration, etc., this can be a very interesting foundation to build on a development of the current school of
new hybrid approach.
Something like that. That's what we mentioned. Amos wants to say something.
Yeah, just the two comments that you mentioned there, bringing in project managers from the university, because you want people to adapt to your own. Okay. My comment on that from a strategic perspective is project management maturity models of project management, or maturity project models of operations management. In the middle of that model, the sweet spot that all organisations are satisfied with, and I mean satisfied with, is when you have a methodology that is used across the organisation. Okay? And everyone's satisfied with that methodology. Everyone understands that methodology, therefore we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, as we say, and everyone's working together. That is a satisfied organisation. Okay, the organisation is functioning. It will be eroded. It will not sustain at that level. And that's what organisations are doing. This is how we want to work. Okay? It's to survive or to compete, going back to my presentation, what I was talking about, in our increasingly competitive and dynamic world, we have to actually be constantly developing methodologies. We have to be moving forward. So you have something that works, and in industry, you don't change. If it's not broken, don't try and fix it. We don't change it because we are producing. You mentioned that. We're making money. We're carrying on. If you want to carry on developing, while you're carrying on, the competitors are still developing, the competitors are still doing things. So to get to the next level of the hierarchy of maturity, we need to, at the top level is actually when you're redefining industry. That's when you're being competitive,
I take that up, but I modify it slightly. I think actually maturity models are a total bloody disaster. Because they assume that people can make these linear progress statements to higher states of enlightenment. It's a sort of faux Buddhism, right, which really shouldn't be applied here. The reality is life is far more fragmented and messy, and people get obsessed with achieving levels based on questionnaires rather than modified practice, right? Now, if you look, I mean, this is called apex predator theory in biology. As species diversity reduces in an ecology, the ecology is ready for mass disruption. And that's what's actually happening. The whole project management methodologies are becoming less and less variety. That means things are coming left field which will totally destroy them. Right? And again, you see in that with industry. Industries are going through Kodak moments left, right and centre at the moment. Market research is going to disappear soon. Right? People are not seeing it because there's so much human mistake. Right? And the same is true of large-scale project management. Yeah, it's going to go radical disruption because the species variety is so low that we're getting left field stuff coming in.
Interesting. I think we have here different levels of thoughts, and I think this is one way that would enhance the call for studying physics and philosophy together. So
it's anthropology.
Right. So
I think there are reasons.
Sorry?
I think there are.
Yes, please go ahead. We have two more questions, and we need.
I would like to ask a question back to our practitioners. How important, because we're talking about Agile, and we've had a few methodologies being discussed, how important are accreditation for individual project managers in PMI, Prince 2? How important is this for organisations to have their employees have these accreditations?
Yes, please.
Yeah, when I hire a PM, I usually look for PMP certified. But it's not the whole equation. It's just an indication that somebody put the effort to learn the practice or the methodology. But I find a lot of people just went for the certification, but when you dig deeper, when you start the interview, it doesn't add any value. So eventually I stopped looking for it.
All right, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yes, please.
We have the same situation. Most of our project managers are developed within the company. So
and almost all of them don't have PMP.
Don't. I think, if I may say,
Yeah, sure.
I think there are reasons for all of this type of issues between industry and what you're saying and academia, as well as now this issue between Agile, Lean, and they think that they are going to replace the whole of the project management domain. The reason behind that, or there are reasons, project management as a profession, one of the newest, if not the newest profession, in the 1950s when that started. But there are like Frederick and at the beginning of the last century, they started thinking about project management in a more scientific way, if you want to put it that way. We have been doing projects, we as human beings, we have been doing projects for a very long time and managing it consciously or unconsciously. People before us, they built the pyramids in Egypt, and people before the pyramids, people developed so many projects, large, small, medium, all sorts of projects. So since we have been walking on this earth, we have been doing projects. Managing it in different ways. Health and safety, if you talk to those who build the pyramids about health and safety, they will think that you are crazy. What is health and safety? But it has been developing since the 50s when all these professional bodies started as well and launched and established. And the issue is we are still developing as project management profession. So when the Agile and Lean people come and say, well, project management is not working, replace it with Agile and Lean. It's not like that. It is part of project management domain, knowledge domain. It's part of it. And BIM now is going to change the construction industry, for example, and the processes in the construction industry. They're going to change from what we used to do. The whole of the process. BIM is not also just a technology. BIM is going to be a process change, and people involved in it. If we compare our profession, project management, with medicine or engineering, medicine has been going on for far longer than the profession of project management. So they have well established practices and procedures and methods, and so we are developing, and they will be not just Agile and Lean, there will be so many other methodologies and theories and approaches and systems which are going to develop in the future within the project management domain. So there is no contradiction or clash between project management or Agile, or there isn't. It is just developing.
See, I
Can we take one note?
That's one of the most important points made so far when you've introduced the concept of professionalism, right?
Yes.
I think part of the problem, though, is if project management is one of the newest professions, if it becomes agile as it's currently thought of, it will share more of the characteristics of the oldest profession. Right? You can see that in the way that accreditation is sold. Now, if you go back to the professional bodies of knowledge, lawyers, doctors, accountants, and those are the ones where we've got a good model. Part of the issue you see with there is they have not abandoned their medieval model of apprenticeship.
Yes.
Those professions still work on a medieval model. Project management didn't go down that route. It focused on codification. Yeah, and that was a major issue because it started with the hype around, correcting on the theory, it starts with the hype of the engineering culture, everything is knowable, everybody is made explicit, which is an anarcha error as well, by the way. It's an anarcha error in knowledge management, it's an anarcha error in project management. The assumption everything can be made explicit. If you look at the apprentice models, the apprentices copy the master and are taught by the journeyman, they make mistakes, they share stories. So the body of knowledge is constantly changing in the stories of its newest practitioners. It's not defined and not transferred intact. And then the journeymen teach, and work with the master. Now I think that's what we're missing. We're missing that, we got this excessive codification, structure, accreditation thing. which has value only for the highly structured aspects of what we do. And we've lost the 4 to 5 year process. And by the way, it takes the brain and the body 2.5 years to co-evolve to acquire any skill, cognitive or otherwise. Yeah, and we're losing that. We brought that back in and created the boundaries about what can be codified and what has to be learned through experience. Then I think we start to become a proper profession.
Right. On that note, I just want to close the session, but with a final note that I think, on reflection, when we are talking project management, we need to think about what are the components of managing a project, and we will find that these are all borrowed theories. So we look at some team building, team management theories, some cost theory, some risk, some cognitive, some psychology, some etc. Interestingly, as Dave has just mentioned, I think one of the issues here that we brought these group of theories that we thought can be well suited to manage a project, and we introduced this sort of body of knowledge and said it fits all. And suddenly some group like IT discovered, no, it doesn't fit us. So they started their own thing. And I think we need to go back to first principles and understand that, well, there's nothing wrong in developing on the first principles what really fits for us and makes it, but it doesn't make us the only right way. And listening to different school of thoughts today and different ideas, I think we still have much to do with managing projects more efficiently and more effectively in different sectors. Thank you very much for your attention. Thanks to our panelists, Amos, Mohamed, Taha, and Dave. Well, I'm very, very privileged to have you with us today, and I'm very grateful to our audience. Can we show appreciation?